going on, book fam? My name is Frankie Reynolds and welcome to another episode of Is It Worth It? Where I review books across all genres and let you know which are worth your time. Today, I'm talking about my most anticipated read for Q1 of 2021. It's a sci-fi thriller genre blend that received critical acclaim and really had me pumped to get back into the thriller genre. As promised in last week's A Memory Called Empire review, we're talking today about Sarah Gaily's The Echo Wife. The concept behind The Echo Wife is awesome. Like I said, it is a true science fiction novel with multiple thriller undertones. In short, our protagonist, Evelyn, is a cloning research scientist. Her scientific endeavors have basically led to her perfecting the cloning process, particularly for specific important reasoning like political endeavors where there's a chance that the president could get assassinated. You could have a clone substitute the real thing and none of the issues that come with a potential assassination would arise. The Echo Wife begins with Evelyn learning that her ex-husband has cloned her and that the clone is somehow beyond all scientific measures pregnant. From there, the story spirals down this dark path that opens a lot of moral conversations and dilemmas for interpretation. It truly is the perfect blend, concept-wise, of the science fiction genre and the hugely popular thriller/psychological thriller genre. It's the main reason I was so pumped for this book. I don't think I'm alone either. I mean, The Echo Wife has already been picked up on a movie deal, and it hasn't even been a month. It speaks to Gaily's accomplishments as a writer and the story that she's trying to tell here. The Echo Wife's a well-written book. It's not beautiful like The Name of the Wind prose-wise, but it's very, very well written. The structure's well executed, the word choice is on point. Gaily's ability to relay Evelyn's perspective of events as they unfold in a believable, relatable way is inspiring and impressive. Because of this, the characterization is top-notch. I could sense the moral dilemmas and the themes and what was going on in Evelyn's mind many times over while reading this story. It's a great portrait of what ifs, which is kind of the staple of the speculative genre, and it's a great what if with regards to scientific discovery. There's other ways you could look at this story too. The clones in a lot of ways could be seen as metaphors for slaves back in the day or for women before suffrage was a thing. The Echo Wife makes you look at the world from a different perspective in a way that we don't think is wrong while reading this story, but when you consider how people thought in those days of old, it might have been similar, and that's frightening. I mean, there's a lot of themes explored here. There's a lot of metaphors in play. Overall, these are done very well. It's a very timely novel. The exploration of these themes is typically well executed. It's relevant, it's important to discuss, and that's not even to mention many of the other subtle issues that are touched on in this novel, like, say, domestic violence. With so many themes in play, you might think that it's tough to wrap everything up in just a 250-page novel, but the ending does come together relatively seamlessly. I like the way that Gaily left some of the questions unanswered. Some are up for interpretation, but a lot of the core messaging is wrapped up in a pretty bow here. One other note, the story is told as a major flashback, which can be very difficult for some writers to do, but Gaily actually makes it work because of her writing style. There's little tidbits that make you realize that she is telling this from the future, so you kind of wonder where she gets, why she's retelling this story, and it works. She does a good job with it. The Echo Wife hits on a lot of points. Beat for beat, does things the right way, but I felt there was something missing in this story, and it left me disappointed overall. My biggest complaint with The Echo Wife is the pacing. This book takes a long time to get into. Like, seriously, 2/3 of the way through the novel, I didn't even know what the story was about. Or let's say I didn't know where the story was headed. That's not a good thing. 60-70% of the way through this novel, the possibilities were still endless, because the world that Gaily creates here is potentially large, but she keeps it small with only a handful of both primary and secondary characters, and that to me was a mistake. We never really get any true sense of the motivation behind this story. Just not a lot happens here. It's kind of dull. That's a shame for such a great concept, and something that very clearly was researched well and has had a lot of thought put behind it. It's strange. Big picture wise, the story's kind of a mess. Chapter by chapter, it's really good. It hits on every beat you want it to as a story. There's nothing wrong with the chapter by chapter pacing, but when you look at it from a macro level viewpoint, not a lot's happening, and it's kind of frustrating. You're in the middle of reading a chapter and you're into it, but then you finish the chapter and you're still wondering, what happened? What's going to happen? How is this relevant to the story taking place, and what is that story? This book can certainly be viewed as a character study in more ways than one. Like I said, there are a lot of tie-ins to political, moral issues, both in our current country's makeup and from past times. But that's still not an excuse for not presenting a story that is engaging as it should be. I mean, even 2/3 of the way through the novel, I had faith in Gaily to wrap this thing up with a bang. And while she does wrap it up, like I said, with a pretty bow, it's not with a bang. It's pretty anticlimactic, actually. It's pretty clever narrative-wise, but it's not exciting. Again, disappointing. Like I said, it just feels like something's missing in The Echo Wife. And it's tough to say what, because it hits on all the major points you want a novel to. But there's just something not there. Maybe the story's too intimate to feel like anything more than a prolonged novella. Maybe the concept itself is just too large for what we're actually given. The book does have a true beginning, middle, and end, but there's still this intangible void that leaves the reader craving more upon completion. That's unacceptable for a novel that should have been great. So, is The Echo Wife worth it? I mean, on paper, it does a lot of things right. Even when I look at its worthy score, it got a 63, which is in that kind of maybe worth it, maybe not, but it's certainly not a bad novel. But man, this book should have been so much more than it was. It kind of felt like a superhero movie back before they were mainstream. You know, like the original like X-Men movies, or the movies from like the 70s and the 80s that you watch now and you go, man, that is just not as good as the new superhero films. Like, that's kind of what this felt like. It hits on all the beats that it should, but it's just not, it's missing something. That's The Echo Wife. It's missing something. It's as unique as it's underwhelming. When I think about what could have been and how many thrillers are out there for potential readers to choose from, I don't think this is worth it. I mean, if you're a die-hard sci-fi fan and you're looking for a unique take on the genre, and you also happen to enjoy thrillers, particularly the thrillers that set up this new wave, like your Gone Girls. I mean, everyone's trying to be the next Gillian Flynn. If you find yourself as one of them, maybe give it a shot, but I just think you're gonna end up being more disappointed than satisfied, like me. The Echo Wave does succeed in some ways. It just fails in others, and when I look at what should have been, it's not worth it. I love Sarah Gaily's writing style. I love what she stands for thematically and morally, and I love what she was trying to do with this book. I'm actually really interested in how they're going to portray this story in a movie, because I think that there are elements here that could make up a really good story, but this just isn't it. Well, guys, that wraps up another episode of Is It Worth It? Earlier this week, we kicked off the first Is It Worth It spin-off series, Movie Madness, with Disney's latest release, Raya and the Last Dragon. Next week, we're kicking off the second Is It Worth It spin-off series, Is It Better? Books versus movies and television shows, with an all-time favorite television series / book series. We're going to take a break from new releases and compare HBO's mega hit Game of Thrones with George R.R. Martin's classic book series, A Song of Ice and Fire. Still not finished. Will it ever be? Well, that's going to be part of the review, and you're going to find out which one's better and if they're both worth your time. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. If you like this review, throw a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I got plenty of book reviews up there, and as I just said, we've got more reviews in other mediums coming your way. Really excited about it. Keep reading, keep watching TV shows, and if you got recommendations, send them my way. I'd love to hear them. Thanks a lot.